Hey everybody, welcome in. Let me know if you can hear me loud and clear, and good Sunday evening as well. Hopefully we're all having a wonderful one out there so far and excited to talk tonight. Got a lot to talk about, from ongoing snow and more snow to come in a historic fashion through portions of the Deep South. So also go ahead and if you're watching the stream after the fact, kind of after the live, also go ahead and do those things either way. That'll help the stream keep on getting out to more people and all of that fun stuff. And let me know where you're watching from as well. With that said, though, let me go ahead and read through some of these chats and say hi to everybody. So, hello. Yeah, so I already see some people talking about the kind of shift in thinking a little bit for portions of the Carolinas. It's not, I wouldn't say it's out of contention in North Carolina and South Carolina. I still think we'll get snow and ice in those states. I think it just might be a little bit different, or it's just going to be very different depending on where you're at. Greenville, Spartanburg is going to get something very different than Myrtle Beach, Wilmington. And we'll talk about that in a second. And it could still shift as well. Places like Charlotte, Columbia, Greensboro, areas that right now are not really in the thick of things, you could get something out of this still. It's not out of the question. We'll talk about the possibilities in tonight's live stream. Kimberly talking about the Canadian model. I haven't shown the Canadian model because the Canadian model absolutely just flipped the script. The Canadian model went crazy, and then the Canadian model just fell off the face of the earth and just completely stopped showing what it was showing, which tells me as a forecaster that it's not handling the storm very well if it's having such drastic swings. So that's kind of one of the reasons I stopped showing it. Got somebody talking about the 18Z Euro and GFS shifted slightly north. Yeah, the latest models have brought it back just further north a little bit to the Carolinas. And that's the biggest question mark, I think, folks. Everyone watching in Louisiana, Texas, southern Mississippi, we're locked in on that forecast, I think. Now, we'll get little changes, but I feel very confident this will be a historic winter storm for portions of Louisiana, down into Texas, and even maybe portions of the Gulf Coast of Mississippi, Alabama, and the Florida Panhandle, where I think it'll be less historic, but we will still see impacts and could uptrend once more is the Carolina coastline and the Georgia coastline. That's where there's a lot more questions currently with this setup. Oh, looks like everyone's saying audio is in and out. Okay, well, let me see if I can fix that by chance. All right, let me know if it's any better. Let me try a couple things, see if I can check the audio. Let me know if it gets any better, or if it gets fixed at all. Let me pull up my audio software. A lot of people saying they can hear me fine, so yeah, I guess I do have to talk. La 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 la. I'll just keep talking and then let me know if it comes back. Okay, guys. Sorry about that. I don't know. Normally, I don't have audio issues, so it might have just been a quick little hiccup in the internet that kind of had some problems. So yeah, it looks like everyone's saying it's good now. Okay, awesome. I'm gonna assume we're good. If people can hear me good, then it's hopefully a little bit better. All right. Okay. Cool. Well, then we'll get back to things. Where were we? What were we talking about? Okay. Then I'll keep going. I guess I'm not cutting out. Cool. I don't know. All right. Hi, Gerald. My family is a huge fan of yours. Can you please shout out Edwin? We're from Charlotte. Well, hello, Edwin, and the whole family there in Charlotte, not far from where I'm at here in University City. So, yeah, awesome. Hopefully, I appreciate y'all tuning in. That means a lot. A lot of people watching from the Carolinas right now, for sure. If anyone's watching from the Northeast, let me know as well. I got somebody watching from Hershey, PA. Awesome. Good to hear. A shout out from Destin. Hello. Thanks for watching from Destin. I've vacationed in Destin before. It's a beautiful city. Lovely beaches in Destin and that entire area. People watching from Louisiana. Dylan says the graph model shows North Carolina coast getting a ton of snow. Yeah, it does. And the graph model is one of those models that, to be honest, folks, is kind of right sometimes and wrong sometimes. It really just depends on the day, is kind of how the graph model seems. It's sometimes all over the place. It did really good on our storm earlier in January, the January 10th timeframe storm. or before that one, actually, the January 5th timeframe storm. I think the one that brought a ton of snow to like Louisville and Kansas City and areas like that. Nailed that storm and then kind of flopped on last week's storm. So maybe we're doing every other storm with the graph. Maybe this time around it's doing better. I don't know. Any snow for Tennessee from Thursday to Saturday? Good question, Colby. I'm trying to think in my brain. The pattern, there is another storm system that's going to work into the area Thursday to Friday. That's after the early week storm. A lot of question marks with that one. It could bring some winter weather potentially to Virginia. If anyone's having audio problems, I suggest kind of refreshing your page. It's kind of weird that some people say it's fine and others don't. So I think that's got to be on a YouTube and not mine. So I would just refresh your page and maybe it'll fix itself. I don't know. Yeah, it says my audio is fine on my end and other people are saying they hear loud and clear. So that's annoying. I apologize about that. But I don't think that's something I can fix. I would just refresh your browser and try to leave the stream and come back in. That might fix it. What are my thoughts for snow in central West Georgia? Sean is asking. Central and Western Georgia, or West Central Georgia, whatever you want to call it there. I do think you'll get some snow. That's one of those that starts to get in the zone of question marks. And I guess I can draw on the map here while we're kind of just chit-chatting right now. This entire area right here, folks, is where we have a lot of question marks on the forecast. Okay, this is where it gets kind of tricky. Back here into Louisiana, southern Mississippi, and kind of this area, we feel pretty good on what's going to happen. We're going to get a good snowstorm / ice storm, depending on where you're at, potentially kind of historic proportion in the sense that it's just something we don't see very often. But the area where we have the question marks, that's where the forecast is a lot tougher. I'll talk about why here as we go through the stream. Yeah, we'll talk about totals. Yeah, so let's go and dive on into things because I think I've talked enough. And now that we've got enough people in here, I'll very quickly, shamelessly plug again. Go ahead, like the stream, subscribe, hit the bell for the latest notifications, all that fun stuff. And let's start talking weather. So we've got this ongoing nor'easter in the Northeast. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it. We're getting some pretty good snowfall totals into this region. It'll be done by tonight, though. It's a very quick hitting nor'easter. It started snowing in Philadelphia really about 4 p.m. and it's already kind of winding down at about 8 p.m. So a very quick kind of 4 to 6 hour winter weather event in this area. And enough to definitely kind of bump up the totals for some folks, though. And you can see that. I wanted to pull this up. This is a webcam from the Hudson Valley in New York. This is just north of New York City by a little bit. You can see the snow coming down here northbound on Interstate 87 in, again, the state of New York at exit 17. So if you know where that's at, awesome. If not, basically it's somewhere getting snow from that nor'easter in the Northeast. And you can see, again, all that snow on the ground. Now, these are always fun to look at. It'll be fun to look at some of these traffic cams with our southern winter storm. Some of those Louisiana traffic cams are just going to be crazy to even look at. And I am very excited for that come early this week. But you can see that snow falling in the Northeast. Now, I will very briefly, and again, I know we got people from the Southeast mainly, but just very briefly talk about this Northeast storm. I promise I'm not going to take as long on this one as I did last night, but gonna wind down. It's still gonna pick up pretty good through Boston into New Hampshire, the down east areas of Maine. Gonna get some good snow out of this. Again, time above my head here, but you'll notice this winds down quick. In fact, by the time we're waking up 7, 8 a.m. tomorrow, it's done. It's gone. So a potent little storm, but little, definitely not a big one. But we will still get some pretty impressive totals out of it. And you can kind of see that here on the forecast from the latest high resolution rapid refresh. Most of the snow to come still up into Maine, southern New Hampshire, and into the state of Massachusetts, with lower snow totals to come back into New York City, probably about another 1 to 3 inches in New York City, maybe 2 to 4 in Connecticut, and then still that 3 to 5 plus here in this area right in here. So still a good little winter storm nonetheless. I think the forecast on this one verified pretty well. The folks I said would get snow seem to have gotten it. The totals might be a little bit lower than the upper end. We'll struggle to see if somebody can get 10 inches out of this one, but definitely widespread kind of 5-inch, half a foot totals looking pretty likely out of that one. All right. Now let's just go and dive right into the southern winter storm, folks, because I think that's what most of us are here for. Again, let me know where you're watching from. And we're going to talk about why this is such a tough forecast for parts of the Carolinas. I'm sure we've got plenty of folks watching in the Carolinas, and we'll talk about why, again, this is a tough one. So I'll definitely give you all a second to chit chat there. I will also talk a little bit about plans coming up on the channel while I let some more folks kind of filter in and let me know where they're all watching from. So obviously we're covering this storm. Today is Sunday. This is going to be a Tuesday and Wednesday storm. So tomorrow is MLK Day. I'm off from school. I'll do the exact same thing, morning video, night video, and probably an evening live stream as well. Just so we'll kind of have the latest data right before the storm begins. Tuesday's a tough day for me class-wise. I'm booked pretty much all day. I'll definitely have a morning video. I will try my best to get an evening video and or live stream, but I don't want to promise that I'll get both. And if I have a live stream, it'll probably be later in the evening and not so much kind of the 7 o'clock time frame. It might be a little bit closer to 7:30 or 8. And then by Wednesday, the storm will be basically happening or already happened, and then we'll start talking about whatever's after that through the end of January. So, all right, let me read where some folks are watching from. We got Janet watching in Massachusetts. I appreciate that, Janet. It means a lot. Thanks for tuning in. Ian in Somerville, South Carolina. Kimberly in Monroe, North Carolina. Larry watching from North Alabama. Stephen in Smithfield, North Carolina. Wyatt's asking about totals. We're going to talk about totals here in just a second, Wyatt, so don't leave just yet. Jacksonville, North Carolina. Been to Jacksonville, North Carolina. I actually have a video on the channel of me storm chasing in Jacksonville, North Carolina. That was a fun little day, fun little storm chase. And by the way, if you like storm chasing, I have a whole playlist on my storm chasing adventures. If that's something else that interests you on the channel, and you'll probably see more of those videos through the spring, as I can hopefully kind of get back out into the field a little bit there. It's definitely one of my passions, though, is storm chasing. Thibodaux, Louisiana. That is such a fun name to say. I love saying Thibodaux. So thanks for tuning in, Courtney, from Thibodaux, Louisiana. Winston-Salem, we got somebody watching from. Definitely, Winston-Salem's going to be a little bit on the outer edge of this. So you could get some snow in Winston-Salem, but it would not be a lot, probably. Jacksonville, Florida could get a bit of an ice storm in Jacksonville. That looks like a possibility. Stephen watching from Lumberton, also storm chase through Lumberton many a times there in the I-95 corridor right there near the border belt of the Carolinas. Austin watching in Aiken, South Carolina. A couple folks watching from Fayetteville, Wilmington, and a lot of these areas that are going to get some snow. So awesome. Gaston, South Carolina. Wilmington is a city I've not been to. I've driven past Wilmington plenty of times, been to Myrtle Beach plenty of times, but not through Wilmington. I've been just south of Wilmington a little bit. In fact, I saw a tornado kind of in that area over August during a tropical storm Debbie. So you folks probably in that area will remember Debbie was definitely, in fact, you kind of had double trouble over the tropical season. You had Debbie, then you had that potential tropical cyclone that brought all sorts of chaos to the Wilmington area and down into Carolina Beach. All right, cool. So let's go ahead and talk about the map a little bit. Let's break it down for you and give you the latest and greatest information on it. And this is why the forecast is tricky, folks. This is our 500 millibar vorticity map on Tuesday afternoon. And basically, this is energy in the atmosphere, storm energy, not really storm fuel. That's more of a severe weather thing. That's CAPE. But just look at this as storm energy to kind of build a storm. Now, here's the problem we're running into in the Carolinas is this is kind of a dual trough. We've got kind of two different areas of troughing that are setting up. Now, this is not a problem for Texas and Louisiana, and here's why. I talk about this all the time on the channel. If you're new and you're just now joining us, then I'll go ahead and break down some meteorology for you, or if you just need a refresher, that's fine too. So here's a trough. It's kind of this extension of these lines here, and I've kind of got a line through what is the center of this trough. And we have always two sides of a trough. The diverging side, which I will draw here, that's always on the right-hand side. And then we have the converging side here on the left-hand side. Basically, the reason we have that is it's always kind of the ballerina analogy that meteorologists like to use. So what's happening above our head on the converging side is the wind is hitting itself. So it's kind of, again, converging, just like, I don't know, whatever other things in life or the planet converge, and that's creating sinking motion. So in this area, generally you get high pressure. You just get kind of boring weather. You get that sinking air. On the diverging side, what's happening is the air is separating. And the reason for that is it's having to slow down. So it's speeding up as it enters this trough. That's causing it to converge. It's kind of like a ballerina. I guess I can use that analogy. I said I was going to. So think about a ballerina. When she or he or whoever it is that's spinning wants to go quicker, they kind of tighten up. It kind of prevents that frictional force. They get really tight in and they start spinning like a top. And that's what happens. The wind speeds up as it goes into this trough and converges. And then as it leaves, it has to balance itself back out and slow down. And by doing that, that, just like a ballerina, it spreads its arms apart, or in this case, the wind spreads apart. That creates divergence above us, and then we get the lift at the surface, and that's generally what creates precipitation or storminess if you can get some sort of moisture overlap with it. So that's the anatomy here. And remember that. And what's going to be really important is that converging side here on the backside. So like I said, we've got two separate troughs. Here's one. Here's another one. So if we draw our diverging side on our southern trough where we have the moisture along the Gulf of Mexico, I mean, it's good to go. That's an area of one, baroclinic instability. I talk about that on the channel. Just means it's a favorable area for low pressure to form. You got that on top of the divergence aloft. That's what makes Louisiana and Texas kind of the special place to be with this storm. Now, the Carolinas, you're thinking, all right, well, what's the problem? That's going to move our way. It is, but it's right around here it moves in. So yes, we're getting divergence here. Absolutely. And that's why I still think Florida, Georgia, the coastline of South Carolina, and maybe even North Carolina is in play here because we're still in that divergent zone. But on the backside, the convergent side from this upper piece of energy is beginning to kind of move in on top of it, and it's counteracting itself a little bit. So that's why Asheville, Knoxville, the northern Atlanta suburbs, Greenville, Spartanburg, that's why I think you're kind of out of this one, at least in a significant way. Could something pop up and you still get a quick couple of inches of snow in those areas? Maybe, especially kind of the Atlanta area, Greenville, Spartanburg, Charlotte, and Greensboro and through the Triad. But the real lift and the most favorable conditions are going to be down here, I think, into northern Florida, southern Georgia, the low country of South Carolina. And I think the models are going to come back for you folks a little bit. I even think areas like Columbia, South Carolina, Fayetteville, Augusta, this is a part the models have really backed off on, but I still think it gets some sort of snow out of us. I don't think it's going to be a nothing burger, even if that's what the models have shown. Now, could it be? Yes, absolutely. When I say I don't think it's going to be, that doesn't mean, I'm Nostradamus and I can see into the future. Just off of what I'm seeing in the upper levels, I think we'll get some sort of precipitation in those areas. Now, Charlotte, Greenville, Spartanburg, Greensboro, the Triad, Winston-Salem, areas like that, it's going to be tougher to get that lift for that precipitation to kind of create something. So that's kind of the trouble we're running into the Carolinas. And again, we've gotten all sorts of questions and comments about that. I know the models have not looked very exciting as of late, and that's one of the reasons why. Now, let's go ahead and dive into the area that is going to be fun. Again, if you're watching down here in Louisiana, Texas, let me know because we're about to talk about you right here. So let me go ahead and read a couple more comments here, and then we'll get into things. All sorts of comments, and I'm not really sure where I left off, so I'm probably going to skip over a bunch, and I apologize about that. In fact, also, I can go ahead and move this ahead in time so you folks can kind of get a little sneak peek of what's on the way while I read some of these. Patty says, what about Stone Mountain, Georgia? Stone Mountain's going to be a little far north for this storm, so probably not a lot there. In a best case scenario, you get a little bit of light snow. James is finally getting some snow at the Jersey Shore. Awesome. Good to hear. I'm glad that you're finally cashing in there. Can the storm still have a chance to turn into a Miller A type? Jason is asking. I think it's unlikely that we get a true Miller A that rides all the way up the coast, but near the Carolina coastline, it's a bit of a Miller A already in essence, in the sense it's in the Gulf and then riding up the Carolina coast, but I don't think it'll really get much further north than that. We would need to see some very big changes in the upper level maps for that to happen. All right, watching from Laurinburg, Newport News. Awesome. A lot of East Coast folks here. I heard North Carolina, Jacksonville can get up to 6 inches. That would be a best case scenario. I think more likely probably 1 to 3 inches there, maybe 2 to 4. A best case, though, would probably be 6 inches. All right, all sorts of folks watching from all sorts of areas. So yeah, I appreciate that. Let's go ahead and talk about this area down into Louisiana and Texas. Now, this is the latest high-resolution rapid refresh model, I think, showing that potential pretty well here. And this is what's going to be the historic part of the storm, is this area down here through Texas, Louisiana, extreme southern Mississippi, as well, going to run that chance of kind of a historic storm. And here's why. Again, like I talked about, we have all that upper level lift combined with this Arctic air mass that is spilling in, and that combination of ingredients is what's going to lead to winter weather potential. So you can see that here breaking out. This is early Tuesday morning by 9 a.m. And let me back it up a little bit, actually. Let's start right around here. This is the evening of Monday overnight into Tuesday. You see this rain beginning to kind of build in. Well, as that cold air spills in with the rain, we change over to kind of a freezing rain threat. I think it will be kind of a dual threat here from snow and ice down into Texas, that freezing rain in pink, but eventually what's going to happen is that cold air aloft is going to build back in and will likely change to over to sleet. And then hopefully, and I do think so, all snow on the backside. And this is when we're going to pile up those big totals into southeastern Texas, through Houston, back into Louisiana, through the I-10 corridor, into New Orleans, Baton Rouge, going to see that snow. And then right along the Louisiana coastline, even seeing kind of that sleet snow mix with this storm system. And that's as far out as this model goes, but if we move it to the next model, the NAM, you can see all of that continuing here through Tuesday afternoon. Heavy snow, not even just light snow. This could be heavy snow at times through Houston, back into New Orleans, Baton Rouge, even I think into the Pascagoula area, Mobile, Gulfport, areas like that along the Gulf Coast that just don't see snow and ice very often. Gonna get what I would consider pummeled out of this one, at least for your standards. Now, this wouldn't be a pummeling if it was Buffalo, New York by any means, but for this area, this is going to be an absolute pummeling of a winter storm. And let's take a look at the totals, folks. This is the blend of models. This is very impressive. You can see this area that we're watching from the I-10 corridor, I would say from Baton Rouge back over into kind of west central Louisiana, south central kind of Louisiana here. We could see half a foot of snow, and that's just so unheard of to get this far south. Now, every now and then we'll get that into northern Louisiana along the I-20 corridor, but to get it down here near the I-10 corridor is just pretty crazy. And I'll tell you, I was in New Orleans last week at a conference, and I'm a little kind of punching air a little bit at this one, that the second I leave, all of a sudden a historic winter storm happens. I don't know, maybe I brought the right vibe and left it there and forgot to bring it back to Charlotte. That's kind of what it feels like a little bit right now looking at the models, but this is kind of that historic proportion that we're looking at. So Houston, New Orleans areas down here, I think going to be more of a 1 to 3 inch event. Again, it would help if I could kind of draw letters and numbers better. 1 to 3 inches plus in that area, I think, is going to be pretty likely here into the more coastal areas of southeastern Texas and Louisiana. If you're down here way south into Texas, further down towards Galveston, more of an icing threat there, less of a snow threat. Maybe some sleet could accumulate and it might look like kind of snow fell, but would probably be more sleet. And then the heaviest snow right into this total, like I said, this is going to be an area of 3 to 6 plus inches. Now, not everyone's going to see plus. Most people will see 3, 4, 5. Some people will see 6 inches, but a couple people could see 7 or 8 inches of snow out of this, given some of the model guidance in that area. It's just crazy to think about there from Baton Rouge back along the I-10 corridor. Just not something you see very often at all. So just really, really crazy stuff. I got somebody watch from Lafayette, Louisiana. Awesome. Yeah, definitely you will enjoy this storm for sure. I can almost guarantee you. Out of this one. So it's looking good. 2 to 4 inches for Columbus, Georgia. Potentially, Zach, maybe a little bit closer to 1 to 3 possible in that area. Living south of Houma, I think is how you say it. I know the city in Louisiana. I just don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. What is the timing looking like for precipitation in my area? Good question. We can look at that for you and kind of break it down for you. So I think the big thing is going to be Tuesday during the day. It could start as early as overnight Monday, but the real kind of bulk of it moves in Tuesday afternoon and then kind of winds down by Tuesday evening. So that's a good question there out of Houma. A lot of people watching from the Carolinas. We're going to get to the Carolinas up next, so don't worry, you're next in line. And we'll talk about Georgia, Florida, Alabama, all those areas as well. And yeah, folks, it can still shift north a little bit. Now, it's not going to shift all the way up to Little Rock or Dallas, I don't think. And same thing for the Carolinas. It's not going to shift all the way probably to Knoxville or Gatlinburg or Blacksburg, Virginia. But Charlotte, Columbia, areas like that, you could get in on higher totals than maybe some of the models show right now. I got a couple super chats here. Eric says Atlanta is too far north or too far south. Yeah, Eric, it's crazy. Places like Atlanta, Columbia, and Charlotte, if we don't get any snow out of this one, I mean, this is going to be a tough pill to swallow because it's areas like that that you always feel like you're too far south. It's always that I-85 line. And then in this case, you're too far north, it feels like. It's like we can't win. I don't know what it is. And I grew up in upstate South Carolina, kind of in the Greenville, Spartanburg, Clemson area. And it was always nice. I was north of I-85. And I saw snow pretty often. And whenever it was time to kind of start applying to colleges, I applied to a bunch of places, but I kind of whittled it down to Charlotte and Charleston, College of Charleston and UNC Charlotte. And I was thinking about my decision. I was like, all right, well, where do I want to go? And as much as I thought Charleston would have been fun, I said, I like winter weather way too much. And as funny as it is, Charleston by the time this week is over, might have more snow in the time I've been in college than Charlotte. I've yet to see any snow outside of a snow shower in Charlotte while I've lived here. So I don't know if I'm bad luck or if I just picked the worst possible time to move to Charlotte or what it is. But it is a pain in the rear end. Trust me, Eric, I get you. All right, Christy says, you were doing a fine job, Gerald. Big hugs from Cabarrus County. I appreciate that. Cabarrus County right up the road. I appreciate that. Athens, Georgia here from Georgia Bulldogs. Yeah, I reckon you probably are in Athens, aren't you? Yeah, it's not looking great for Athens. I don't think it's going to be a big storm for you. Could still get some sort of snow. And we'll look at the European here in a second. The European's kind of showing that potential. And yeah, same for Augusta. Augusta's the same thing too. It's like you're too far south most of the time, and then the next thing you know, you're too far north. It's like the only storms that you're in the bullseye on are the ones you don't want, like Helene over the fall. The one storm you don't want to come right over you does, and then the ones that you do want to come over you don't. It's just the way the atmosphere works, and unfortunately, we have absolutely no control over it. Kind of contrary to popular belief sometimes. I think at least I don't have control over it. Somebody else does. I wasn't put in on the email or in the memo, so I don't know. Somebody asking about Joco, Johnson County, North Carolina. By the way, I have two friends, and I mentioned this in the live stream last night, who anytime Joco is mentioned, it's like just a rage of arguing about what part of Joco is better. And I don't know. I'm a South Carolina boy living in North Carolina, so I don't know really much about Joco. Been there once or twice, but I can't really contribute to that conversation. All right, so let's go ahead. We were talking about totals here. Let's show you a couple other things here in Texas and Louisiana, and then we'll go over to the Carolinas because we got a ton of folks asking about the Carolinas, so we'll do that next. So briefly, we talked about the snow. Let's talk about the ice. Not a huge deal here, but I would watch for an uptrend in here. If some of the latest model guidance is right, watch for this to go up to more of a starting as an ice storm and then changing to a snowstorm. And if you thought travel was bad already, you get a layer of ice and then you dump snow on top of it. Yeah, that's a recipe for a very rough travel. So that's something we'll need to watch here into Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and areas like that. So that's kind of the Texas, Louisiana stuff. That's the historic part of the storm. Now we're going to get to the annoying part of the storm, and the part that it has been a pain to forecast. Trust me. And I get it, folks. You open up your app one day and it says a foot of snow, and the next it says nothing. And by the way, reason number one there, do not use the Apple Weather app or anything like that. Now, if you want to use your local news app, go for that. I can recommend that, generally speaking. Most of those are handpicked forecasts, at least for the big cities and kind of the 7-day. Some of it's even automated on those apps, but that's better than the weather app from like the Weather Channel or the Apple Weather app. Not to say anything bad about those companies. It's just they're very kind of computer generated, especially the Apple Weather app. That's one you really don't want on your device. So, okay, let's talk about areas further east here. This is the Euro model run. And doing a pretty good job here of, I think, showing that wintry potential Tuesday afternoon and evening. Now, this is kind of, I won't say the boom scenario, but this is on the higher end chances. The European does get a quick little burst of light snow into North Georgia, even into maybe the sections of upstate South Carolina, south of I-85, trying to get a little bit of light snow here. We're all snow down into the Florida Panhandle, the western half of the Panhandle, Destin, Pensacola, down into Mobile. Again, it is crazy to say that out loud, but that's the case. That's what the models are showing here. And that could be kind of something that I think plans out to be pretty true. Sorry, I was reading a chat there, making sure that I don't have to mute anybody because I had to do that quite a bit yesterday, and it's kind of annoying to do. So, okay, we might have to do that. Let's see. Sorry, folks, I'm having to do moderator things and actual forecasting things at the same time, which can be a little bit of a pain. So, okay. That should solve that problem. All right, we're back to talking about weather. Sorry. By the way, if you tuned into last night's stream and you saw the guest speaker, tell me if you liked that. I thought that was great. I thought it was fun to have a guest on, and I think I'll probably bring him back if he's willing to come on for kind of the northeast storms that we have. By the way, I linked his channel, BGWX, under my channel at the bottom. It's under great follows. Brady is a great forecaster, really one of the best out there for the northeast, kind of breaking down the nitty gritty stuff. So definitely check out his channel. He goes live all the time and does a terrific job of breaking those things down. So definitely would recommend that channel. But back to talking about the weather here and kind of what we're seeing out of this model run, the European. You see that blue showing up here again. This is Tuesday afternoon and evening from from New Orleans to Mobile to Pascagoula, back into Destin, Pensacola, even some light snow on the campus of Auburn there, and some light snow getting into South Georgia. Now, I'll move it ahead another frame. This is the evening, about 7 p.m. Some light snow in Columbia, South Carolina, Augusta. And folks, trust me, I know this is a setup that you want a big snow out of, but take anything you can get when we're dealing with these little iffy kind of scenarios where at some time it kind of looks like it's going to be good, and other times just take what you can get. All right. If you could right now have two options on the table, which is 2 inches of snow in Columbia, South Carolina, or, you know, a 50% chance of a foot and a 50% chance of nothing, take your 2 inches, because it feels like it takes a miracle to get snow down here anymore for whatever reason that is. But this model is showing some light snow in those areas, and then a bigger winter storm into coastal areas. Now, another thing I'll mention, the European's much warmer down here into Jacksonville, areas of the I-10 corridor in Florida, outside of the Western Panhandle. Some of the mesoscale models coming in colder in that area, and that's something sorry, I'm trying to read 10 things at once. That's something we'll watch for, and I'll show you the NAM model in a second. It has a lot more ice down here where you see rain, and we'll talk about that. But the model here, the European, showing a nice little winter storm in the eastern Carolinas, the Outer Banks, down to Myrtle Beach, Georgetown, into Murrells Inlet, even Charleston, into Orangeburg, South Carolina, Somerville, Moncks Corner, all those areas, seeing some nice snow out of this one on this model run. And this would accumulate to a nice quick couple of inches. Now, it wouldn't be like what we see back into Louisiana, but it would still be a nice winter storm for an area that really just doesn't get it very often. We'll move it up a little bit further ahead into time. Another kind of boom little scenario we'll watch. This is during the overnight of Tuesday. See this very strong zone right here, folks, of this precipitation blowing up. If this shifts inland just a little bit, places like eastern North Carolina, back down into here, we could get a band of heavier snow on the back side of this. Now, is that guaranteed? No, but that's the beautiful thing of live streams. I can kind of tell you what are some possibilities. Another possibility is the next model I'm going to show you, which is kind of the not so fun model, but that's the European. And honestly, it's not a terrible look. It's got some snow for folks who really just don't get it very often. Granted, it's not 1970 whatever all over again, but it's still a good winter storm for areas that just don't get it very often. So I think, for our snow lovers, be grateful for what you can get out of that. All right, latest NAM, folks. We'll show this one to you. It's similar down here into southern Alabama, the Florida Panhandle. Again, areas like that, we feel pretty good. We're going to get some good snow. We'll talk totals next in just a second after we look at this model. But this is where the NAM gets different. It has more ice into the Florida Panhandle, and even down into southern Georgia where the European had some rain. It's ice on this model. But the difference is what's happening in here. Notice that upper level convergence and sinking air is just ruining the parade on this model. And we're just running out of snow here, and it's barely anything in Myrtle Beach, Wilmington. Some light snow in the Outer Banks, some light snow in Savannah, maybe even a quick burst of heavy snow, but it's just a little too far offshore, and it's not very good. So you kind of see what we're fighting here in the models, folks. One says a nice little, kind of winter weather event. Another says that we're not really going to get much of anything. And sorry, I'm going to have to continue to put people in timeout, which I really don't want to have to do, but yeah, do what I got to do. So yeah, that's kind of the difference between the models in this area. It's just all comes down to that upper level difference. And what are we? We're Sunday night now. This will be Tuesday night. So we got 48 hours. I've seen it before that these things kind of blow up in the last 24 hours. The evening model runs have gotten a little bit better for snow lovers. Will it keep that way in the overnight? That's the $1 million question that you'll have to really just come back tomorrow morning to find out. And I will definitely keep you updated on. So with that said, let's talk about some totals here, because we got plenty of folks asking about that. And trust me, I want to give you the most accurate possible answer I can. Now, this is the blend of models, and I think the blend of models is probably handling this pretty well. But you know what I should do also, now that I think about it, let me switch this to compare models loop so we can look at all sorts of models and kind of give you some of those boom and bust scenarios. So the blended models, I think, is a fair forecast right now. Down here into South Alabama, South Georgia, this area of kind of 1 to 3 inches. I'm going to say 1 to 3. Most of this you see is about 1. I'll go 1 to 3 because that boom scenario could definitely be a little bit better. And I'm going to have to put more people in timeout. There we go. All right. Hopefully that... Are we good? Okay. There, I think it's another person in timeout. Sorry, I don't know why people feel the need to spam the chat. Appreciate it if you want to spam nice things, or really just don't spam at all. But if you want to just not spam random letters, that would be great. So, okay. All right. So, yeah, that area of southern Alabama, southern Georgia, I think 1 to 3 inches is a pretty safe bet. Now, the forecast gets tougher here into the low country, South Carolina, rather, but I would still say right now about 1 to 3 inches of snow in here. And that's my assumption that the models are going to come back to a more favorable look. Now, if they continue trending to crap like the NAM was, I would bring that down, obviously, a bit. But right now, I'm going to stick to the 1 to 3 guns right here for places like Charleston, Myrtle Beach, Wilmington. Again, I cannot draw a 3 with a cursor to save my life. There we go. It looks a little bit better. All right. All right, there you go. I guess that's the con of having 600 people in here is you're bound to have a couple people with the random chat messages. So yeah, there you go. That's kind of the forecast in this area from the blend of models and kind of what I think is about right. Let's go ahead and show you some other models, and this will be my first time looking at some of these as well. So the European, this is the newest one. You can see higher in totals where we had a better look here. It's got almost 3, 4, 5 inches down into Charleston, into the low country of South Carolina, Myrtle Beach, Wilmington. It's got a big swath of 2 to 4 inches of snow into South Georgia, South Alabama. This is more that boom scenario that we talked about. Areas like Columbia even getting about an inch or two on this model. And then, only about a dusting in Charlotte where, a couple flakes could fly enough to maybe cover the ground white with some light snow, but probably wouldn't, amount to much more than that. The Canadian model, and I had somebody ask me about the Canadian model. Why did I stop showing it? Well, here you go, folks. It looks nothing like it did 2 or 3 days ago. So obviously it's really struggling with this storm. The GFS model, this is the problem again. The GFS is a little bit closer to the NAM, and it's just not very exciting into South Carolina and North Carolina. It's got a dusting up to an inch in some of these areas, but just not a very exciting look. But then it still shows the big snow down into southern Mississippi, southern Alabama, and the western panhandle of Florida. Those areas, again, a lot more confident. By the way, I didn't talk about the panhandle very much or down here, but the panhandle of Florida, probably I'd say 1 to 2 inches in the western panhandle there for areas like Destin, Pensacola, especially areas just inland a little bit. Sorry, I'm reading some chats here, so if I ever go quiet, that's probably what I'm doing. Yeah, so that's kind of that model. The Icon model, the Icon I think is also doing okay-ish, a little bit closer to the European. The Icon's kind of the middle ground between the European and the GFS right now, which is maybe something to lean on. And again, showing lower snow down into the low country of South Carolina, 1 to 2 inches, and then higher totals back into the panhandle of Florida. Again, it's just crazy to look at this and think that there's a chance that the panhandle of Florida might get more snow than like Columbia, South Carolina. It's just such a strange setup that is, I'm sure, annoying to many folks. What about the UK model? Yeah, I don't know what the UK model's showing. Not much at all. So I would kind of ignore that one. I think that one's out to lunch. But if I got to swing through all of these again really quickly, 1 model, 2 models, 3 models, 4 models, 5 models, and then blended models, you get the idea on why this is a tough forecast. So go easy on your local Mets. If you feel nice enough to go easy on me, that would be great too. But I won't hold it against you if you definitely call me out for a wrong forecast. You want to be the first person to do it, and I'd be willing to accept that. So, all right, so those are the models there on that icing potential. This is something I am slightly worried about down into the Florida Panhandle. Like I said, some of the models are a little bit higher here on the icing threat. And we could see what I would consider an ice storm, 1/10 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch of ice. That's enough to cause big travel issues. That would cause power outage problems and all sorts of other things that we would need to watch for kind of in this area. All right, let me move this map up a little bit into Southeast Virginia, Eastern North Carolina, an area that I know we got some viewers from. This is, again, the blended models, and you kind of see that little boom scenario I talked about. Out here in the Outer Banks, if we had a nice little band on the backside of this, I mean, we could get 1 to 2, maybe, 2 to 4, maybe even 3 to 5 inches of snow. Right now, I would just lump this entire area of the low country and into southeastern Virginia into just an overall kind of broad 1 to 3 inch scale. It could be a little bit more than that. It could be a little bit less than that. So I'll even put the little plus and the minus here just because it's such a tough forecast. I'll even put it in parentheses like I'm doing a math equation. So there you go. So yeah, it's a tough forecast here, folks. Like I said, there's just so many differences in the models, difference in the nuance of things. And it's going to be one of those things that, unfortunately, we kind of just have to nowcast when we get there. as annoying as that is for me to say, and as annoying as it is for you to hear, trust me, I get it. It's just going to be something that we kind of have to deal with. So, all right, those are all the maps I pulled up. So if y'all want to go ahead and ask some questions, I will try to answer some of them. I'll be honest with you, I'm pretty whooped. I'm pretty tired. So I'm probably not going to go forever tonight, but I'll definitely answer some questions. So let's see what y'all got. I'll kind of let this play of just these cars driving in the snow, because that's festive, isn't it? All right, let me go back up here and see what we got question-wise. Also, yeah, I know I've got questions about people asking if they can moderate and all. Yeah, I'll have to find somebody. So if somebody wants to reach out to me and try to, in fact, I think I just got an email actually about that from somebody. So yeah, we can look into that. We'll do that for another stream. I think since I'm answering questions the rest of the time, we can hopefully not have to worry about it too much more. All right. Yeah, that is absolutely a lot of snow in the south. Kind of unusually high amounts of snow in the south. With the cold, dry air in place, I find it hard to believe snow will make it past Atlanta. Yeah, I don't think snow will get much further north than Atlanta by any means, Brian, unless we get some big changes in the upper levels. Is that storm going to ride the coast up to New England? No, this one is not going to ride up the coast to New England. This one is going to kind of just hit the southeast and be done. Chances of this storm hugging the coast and causing another storm for the northeast. This one, not so much. Yeah, not from this one. What's the chances for Rockingham, North Carolina? Now, luckily, you're in eastern North Carolina, so you're in a better kind of position than some other folks are out of this storm. Compared to areas of like, Charlotte and Greensboro and areas like that. That kind of corridor between Fayetteville and Charlotte, that's in that area that it's tough to kind of know exactly. You could get a couple of inches, you could get absolutely nothing. It's just we really don't know right now, but those are the possibilities. So, keep that in mind. Will snow in Columbus, Georgia on the south storm? Yeah, probably will snow. The question will be how much snow. I would say an inch or two. Can I cover Clemens, North Carolina, please? And thank you, Seth is asking. Let me find out where Clemens, North Carolina is. I've heard of it, but not quite putting it onto a map here. All right, Clemens, North Carolina, that's up near the Triad. Probably not anything out of this one, Seth. Maybe a dusting to an inch if you're lucky, but it's probably more likely that it just doesn't snow at all for you. How much snow in the Smithfield, North Carolina area? That's in eastern North Carolina. I think you're kind of lumped in that 1 to 3 inch range, but that could go up or down. So do not, take that as a end all be all forecast. It's going to change some. Oh, look at that. We got some lights down there. I love a good traffic cam. Isn't that fun? Love some flashing lights. All right, we have all sorts of questions here. All right, a couple people asking about Charlotte. Charlotte is kind of in this, again, that kind of, I hate to say it's in the screw zone a little bit, where you're a little too far north, I think, for anything significant. But if this overperforms, we could get 1 to 2 inches of snow in Charlotte, especially to the southeast of the city. Areas like Monroe, kind of that US 74 corridor, dreaded Independence Boulevard. If you get on Independence and you head out like you're going to the beach, higher chances down that way. If you live up in Huntersville, kind of up into Mooresville and near Lake Norman, back out towards Gastonia, much lower chance that you see anything out of this storm, besides maybe some flurries or a quick period of light snow. Bobby asking about Houston. This is going to be a big storm for Houston. Ice, snow, you're going to get it all out of this one. So a very big storm for Houston, Bobby. A lot of people asking about North Carolina. So, folks, let me just go back to a map of North Carolina and just kind of draw out my thoughts, and then you can kind of get the idea from that. We will use this map for North Carolina. All right, so if you're in this area, back into Asheville, Western North Carolina, Hickory, areas like that, you're about out of it. I really don't think you're going to get anything out of this storm, okay? So just don't get your hopes up if you're in there. If you're in this area of, and this is going to be a very small area, if you're in this area of kind of the Triad down into Mooresville, into kind of the Huntersville area, Lake Norman, and we'll even say kind of the uptown area of Charlotte, probably nothing. However, there's a scenario where we uptrend this enough and you can maybe get a dusting to an inch. Okay, that's kind of the yellow outlined area. Next area, this is going to be the area that is kind of right in the boom or nothing category. In fact, let me draw that a little bit better so we can even include kind of Atlanta in this, kind of this area right here. All right, you guys kind of seeing the behind the scenes forecast of a map being made. If you're in that pink area, that's an area that right now the models are not showing a lot. However, I could see this getting up in a relatively significant way, up to a couple of inches of snow. That's kind of the pink area. All right, now let me draw another area with, okay, I can change the color to a different color. Let's do this. Then we'll do this area that we currently have down here into the orange. Now, if you're in this orange area, in fact, you know what? Let me redraw that a little bit. Let me do a little bit of redrawing here, folks. Oh, I didn't want to redraw it that much. All right, let me redraw this pink area because I think we can make it a little bit further out in this kind of unknown zone. I'll extend the unknown zone down a little bit, so it'll put it more right about here. It's kind of the unknown zone. So same thing that I said there for you folks kind of into that area. Now, if you're in this new area I'm about to draw, this is where I am forecasting snow right now. If you're in this kind of orange area right through here, this includes Myrtle Beach, Charleston, up into Wilmington, the Outer Banks. If you're in there, that's where I'm forecasting snow right now. I'll go with a preliminary 1 to 3 inches. That could go up, that could go down. Again, and models are going to change over the next day or two, but that's kind of my thoughts on those areas. Hopefully that answers a whole bunch of people's questions in here. Canadian model was gaslighting the entire week. Oh my word. Yeah, Joey, it wasn't very good. Well, upstate South Carolina, see snow. It depends if you are in what part of the upstate. If you're in the extreme southern upstate near the Midlands, you have a higher chance than if you're up near Greenville, Spartanburg, Pickens, Oconee County, areas like that. What would need to happen to bring the storm more inland in North Carolina? Kimberly is asking. Well, that's a great question, Kimberly, and I can answer that for you by going back to our upper level map, the oh so important upper level maps. It always comes down to this. All right, so here's the problem that we talked about earlier. We've got this area of sinking air on the back of this northern piece of energy that is kind of compressing the atmosphere and drying things out more than it already is in an Arctic air mass. What you want to do is this entire little piece of energy up here that I'm drawing an X over in a circle, if you can slow this down and back it up and kind of speed this southern piece up at the same time, then that's when we could get hypothetically more snow further inland towards areas like Charlotte, Columbia, maybe even the Triad, Raleigh, areas like that. That's what you would need to happen. Is that happening in the models right now, though? Not quite. That's not super excited about that chance. But that's what you would need. That's what you would need for this storm to move further inland. Is there still a chance it could shift north to Metro Atlanta like January 2014? It could, yes. Is it likely right now? It's not likely, but that is still a real possibility. Yeah, it's a possibility. It's not, super likely by any means, but it is a possibility. Yeah, the high would need to move west. Exactly. You need the high to move back this way, back off a little bit. And again, the kind of pro we have, folks, is we've got a ton of instability down here. So the atmosphere wants to bubble up already. It's just getting counteracted by that high pressure. That's kind of squeezing it down a little bit and, raining on our parade slightly. Also, folks, I will say briefly, I do want to thank y'all because we hit 34,000 subscribers today, which is just crazy. I don't really know what else to say, but thank you. So yeah, that means a lot. We were at, I was just talking to somebody else about this. We were at about 11,000 subscribers at like the middle of November, and now we're at like 34,000 at the middle of January. So it's been like 2 months, and the channel's really kind of blown up. So definitely want to say thank you for that. Do I think schools will get canceled in Spartanburg? Probably not in Spartanburg, unless the storm manages to shift north. What do I predict for Lancaster, South Carolina? Maybe a little bit of snow down there. It wouldn't be a huge storm, but maybe like a dusting to an inch. Maybe it could be more than that. Again, if the storm shifts north, but that's just kind of the question mark still. Myrtle Beach, what do I think? I think Myrtle Beach is going to get winter weather out of this for sure. Probably around 1 to 2 inches right now would be my guess of a snow sleet mix in the city itself. Now you go inland a little bit towards Conway, it might be more snow than sleet. You might get a little bit more. So that's kind of my thoughts on Myrtle Beach. Gerald, please address Norfolk snow because you never do. All right, let's talk about Norfolk. So we'll show you the blended models in Norfolk. How about that? Down here, the blended model says a couple of inches into southeastern Virginia. So I think that could be right. Now, I'd be a little scared up in here because, again, a lot of the models show basically nothing. The blend still shows something, but I'd be a little scared if I was up there. I'd feel a lot more confident if I was in the Outer Banks or down here into South Carolina than if I was up in that area. But you could get a little bit of snow in Norfolk. All right, folks. So I think honestly that's a lot of questions. I think we've kind of answered just about every area that I can think of. I'll answer this last one. Chances Augusta will cancel school. Probably. Well, I really don't know for Augusta. Augusta again is right on the line. I hate saying I don't know, but it's right on the line of it could be a 2-inch snowstorm or it could be absolutely nothing. They might play it safe and just cancel anyway. We'll see. Do I believe this is the last snowstorm for the south of the year? I know I said it was about it, and I'm going to keep answering these questions now because a bunch just funneled in. So that's a good question. It's January, so you know what we can do actually is go back here, and I haven't done this in a while. Let's look at the long range a little bit because I'm actually interested myself. I've been so busy on the current storm that I haven't looked out into the long range in a while. So let's go back and see what's on the way. So here's our big cold pocket here. That's what's happening now. Then we get another little storm system on Friday. Could that do something in the south? Maybe. And then the southeast ridge kicks in by the end of the month, it looks like. And then check this out, by the really end of the month, another big shot of cold air comes down. So does that happen? Maybe. We'll see. So it's too soon to say it's over for sure. I wouldn't lose hope that the winter is over by any means. I appreciate that, Keith. Thank you. Do I think February will torch? I'll be honest, folks. Right now, I'm in a class called Climate Dynamics, and basically, it's about long-range patterns and stuff in the atmosphere. And my teacher, who is a very smart climatologist, I guess is the word, or a climate scientist, he had a very good slide. And I love, all the time people talk about El Nino, La Nina, and all these things. But like the very first slide he showed, he said, all right, and he asked the question, what do we think is the biggest factor in long range patterns? So between what's going to happen in February, what do we think is going to be the biggest factor in that and what you see at your house? Do we think it's going to be the NAO or the PNA, or whether we're in El Nino or La Nina or an earthquake or something? And everyone kind of gave all these intrinsic answers, or intrinsic, that's not a word, is it? It might be, I don't know. And the best answer was just the weather being crazy. The weather's just going to do what it wants to do, whether we're in El Nino, La Nina. So for me to tell you it's either going to torch or not in February, I'd basically be shooting in the dark. And that's one of the reasons I don't do seasonal forecasts. Now, those things can help for sure. You can use them, but it's not a guarantee. And let's just try to get through the current cold spell, and then we'll get to February. Could Texas see more snow than predicted? Parts of Texas, yeah, it's possible. I think, excuse me, the most snow we're going to see down there is going to be into the Houston area, probably, and just north of Houston, going to see the most snow in Texas, and could uptrend a little bit. What about Montgomery, Alabama? Will we see anything? Probably a couple inches in Montgomery, an inch or two of snow, I would say. Oh yeah, somebody asked about New York City and what's going to happen over the next hour or two there. Well, New York City, you're kind of in the back band. It looks like, given radar, if it can stop glitching out for a second on me, you're kind of the worst of the storm has passed for New York City. The current storm ongoing. You could probably still get another couple of inches. You just had a really nice band move through. I think maybe another 1 inch, maybe 2 inches in New York City. But let me know how much you got on the ground right now. I'd love to hear. Yeah, sorry, radar's kind of freaking out on me a little bit. What about Aiken, South Carolina? Aiken could get a little bit of snow. Probably not a big storm for Aiken, but maybe an inch or two. That's kind of in the same Columbia corridor of who knows right now. The models are just all over the place. Oh my gosh, thank you so much, David. David is always donating to the channel, so everyone go ahead and type in the chat, thank you, David, because he is always a big supporter of the channel. And by the way, I had another donation a couple days ago, and I don't know if she's in here or not. I think it was a she. Let me find out who that was, too, so I can thank them. By the way, folks, I know I've not been very active in the comments, especially my longtime viewers who have been on the channel for a while and are kind of used to me being in the comments. School and all has been crazy, and the growth has been crazy, and just trying to keep up has been kind of a little bit of a nightmare, to be honest with you. But thank you so much, David. That means a lot. Let me see again if I can find this other one. Yeah, Linda donated $5 to the channel as well. So I appreciate that, Linda. She did it through PayPal, which, again, whether you do it through PayPal or in the super chat way, anything's awesome. And David, that works out great because I have to buy an advanced dynamics meteorology textbook that I need to start studying, which we'll get to. So thank you, David. That means a lot. Didby says, hey, GM, love watching you. Can you please tell me Sanford, North Carolina will get some snow? We deserve it. It's been so long without snow and ice. Well, yeah, we can look into that. And thank you for that super chat as well. All right, let me pull up exactly on my map where Sanford is. I think I know where it is, but I don't want to say I do and then not know. So, okay, I was about right. Yeah. So for anybody wondering, Sanford's in the Raleigh area. It's again such a tough forecast in that area because you're kind of in the thick of things. And somebody asked me if I could zoom in on the map. I can do that for you. So you know what? We'll go super zoomed in on North Carolina and Virginia and talk about some of these areas. So this is the blended model. Sanford is down here. Raleigh coming in at about 9/10 of an inch on the blended models. But if we switch it between some other models, let's see if we can do some model comparing and look at the difference between some of these models. So the Euro for you, lower end. The GFS for you, lower end. The Icon, lower end. The UK Met, lower end. But the blend is a little bit higher. And I think this is probably going to be a little bit closer to reality because, again, I think the storm's going to come back from the depths a little bit, at least in here. So I think we'll get some flakes to hopefully fly in places like Sanford, Raleigh, Greensboro, Charlotte. Just this whole corridor right in here is such a tough forecast. It really is, especially the further kind of on this side of it you are. Back here towards Charlotte, Greensboro, I feel more confident. It's really not going to be much of anything at this point. But you get to Raleigh, Fayetteville, Florence, this corridor in here, just such a tough forecast. So appreciate that. How's Murrells Inlet in South Carolina going to be? That's down near the Myrtle Beach area for anyone asking. We can switch the map down to South Carolina and Georgia as well. Kind of zoom into some of these little towns and cities and all that. So you're in kind of that 1 to 3 inch range I showed. Down here in Murrells Inlet, Savannah, Charleston, Myrtle Beach, that whole section of coastline is in the 1 to 3 inch range right now. Oh, it's very kind of you, Kimberly. I appreciate that. I don't know if I'd say I'm a natural, but I can be okay sometimes as long as I get enough caffeine in my system. But I appreciate that. Those are very kind words, and thank you for the donation. Yeah, always good memories anytime there's snow in the South, folks. I mean, I can tell you here in, growing up in the upstate and all, some of my favorite memories are playing in the snow. And I lived kind of on the side of a hill, so always sledding down it, whether it was sleet and kind of icy mix or not, because we had plenty of that growing up and not so much pure snow. One of the reasons I think I'm really big into weather, specifically the winter of 2014, was crazy in the South. For a lot of you folks will remember that one. Just had all sorts of snow and ice and everything, and it was just a real blast. So. DC in the mix, probably not with this one. Probably not with this one. All right, folks. Well, we've been going for about an hour now. I think things are simmering down a little bit. So, first of all, thanks again for all the donations. That means the world to me. Thanks for the growth on the channel. It has been, again, ridiculous. And just to keep it up, if you haven't already, let me plug it in again. Go ahead, like the stream, subscribe, and hit the bell for the latest notifications. And I'll be back tomorrow morning with an update for everybody on the storm once more. We'll dive in just on the southern storm. We'll be done in the northeast by tomorrow. We'll get into the nitty gritty, and we will get down to it and give you the latest data. Hopefully, fingers crossed, overnight we get a trend back northwest. I'll be up bright and early at 6 a.m. analyzing the data and hopefully have a video out by 8 or 8:30 for you folks on that information. All right, y'all have a great one. Stay safe, stay warm, think snow. I'll see you all tomorrow morning.